Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Good afternoon, Cougar Nation. Welcome on in to Cougar Sports Saturday here on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte with you on a game day. Hope all of you had a fantastic Thanksgiving holiday. It's been a great week, and now it's capped off tonight with some BYU football as the Cougs get ready to take on the Houston Cougars, and BYU's looking for its 10th victory of the season. We're going to be breaking it all down over the next 3 hours. We'll have a loaded show for you. You'll hear from Jacob Robinson, Parker Kingston. We'll catch up with former BYU player Moroni Laulu-Pututau. It's going to be a lot of fun today over the next 3 hours.
Willie Fritz in the mix as well. We talked to him back at Big 12 Media Days. He was complimentary BYU, so a lot of great stuff coming your way. But, Mitch, let's start things off with what's happening in Provo later tonight.
The starting lineup. A look at the stories making headlines right now. It's time for the starting lineup on Cougar Sports Saturday.
10 wins is within grasp, and, of course, a spot in the Big 12 championship game. That picture will become clearer as we get closer to kickoff. Arizona State will be kicking off during this show from Tucson, Arizona, and then a little later tonight from Ames, Iowa. Farmageddon, Kansas State and Iowa State. Last year, the road team in that game sprung an upset, that being Iowa State winning in Manhattan. So could the roles be reversed? There's obviously revenge on the mind for the Wildcats, and of course, they still have a mathematical shot at getting to the Big 12 championship game. A lot at play, but none of it will matter if BYU doesn't beat Houston. Do you think that's a challenge for this BYU team, keeping that out of mind, all these wild scenarios? Because they're going to know before the game's over if they're in or not. Do you think that'll play a role tonight?
Well, they got to take a page from Jake Retzlaff and keep the main thing the thing.
Keep the main thing the main thing?
Yes, they need to do that. And I think that hits home tonight because it could be easy after a 2-game losing streak and with the portal season coming soon next week. Be easy to get distracted and not be focused, and you got a holiday into this week. This is always a tricky week. The teams that have that great culture, great dynamics in the locker room, they can navigate these weeks pretty well because it's just a strange game week when you got a holiday smack dab in the middle. And BYU, I think that's been a common theme with this group is that they've got a great culture, they've got a great locker room. Maybe it's been a little bit tested with the 2-game losing streak, but by all accounts, it seems like they're in a great place to be in a position to bounce back. I thought there was a lot of fight from this BYU team last week against Arizona State in the second half after what was an abysmal first half in Tempe. BYU showed some resilience, and you hope that carries over to tonight, and they take care of business. And as Jake always says, keep the main thing the main thing.
Here's what Kalani Sitake had to say about all these wild tiebreaker scenarios and how it could affect BYU.
I think everybody knows a lot of the different scenarios. All I care about is focusing on the seniors and trying to find a way to control the stuff that we can control, which is how we play this weekend and how we prepare today. And then we'll just see what happens afterwards. But the goal is to try to go 1-0 this week. That's got to be our primary goal. And then we deal with the results of how that affects everything else from there on.
I think it is going to be hard to keep that out of mind, but there's also a scenario, too, where let's say Arizona upsets Arizona State, which a lot of national people don't think this is a possibility. I do believe it's a very strong possibility. Tucson, going down to Tucson, Arizona has played well against Arizona State in the last 5 or so years. You still have Noah Fafita. That Arizona State defense, they were nothing special. You could give up 30 points to them. And it's a rivalry game. And I loved hearing from Noah Fafita earlier in the week where he said, this is our Super Bowl. This is the most important thing to us, a chance to prevent them. I bring this all up to say It's a rivalry game, and the Big 12 Conference this year has been crazy. Baylor looks like one of the best teams in the league right now. They're giving it to Kansas currently in Waco. Anything can happen, and there's a chance, Mitch, a real chance that you go into this game tonight and you already know that if we win, we're in. So, but that's also the challenge against this Houston team, that you can't get distracted. As Kalani said, you have to worry about going 1-0 this week, and that will be more of a challenge than maybe you would have originally thought looking at this game, just because Houston's defense is legit, and Houston has upset some teams this year in conference play.
I hope that BYU gets a chance to play in the Big 12 championship game next week. That would be some epic stuff. It's a 10 a.m. kickoff next Saturday in Arlington in the Big 12 championship game. Arizona State and Iowa State, if they win today in their games, they're going to be playing in Arlington. But if one of them loses and BYU wins, Cougs are going to be in Arlington next week. And BYU goes into tonight's game ranked number 19 in the college football playoff top 25, 9-2 record. BYU just plummets after 2 losses against 2 solid football teams, one of which ranked one of the hottest teams in college football with Arizona State. But BYU's down to 19 this week in the playoff rankings. And I bring that up because you would think with having Big 12 championship hope still on the line that they would be in the thick of at-large talk for the college football playoff, yet it doesn't seem like that's a thing for many Big 12 teams.
The disrespect to the Big 12 has been one of the most shocking storylines of this college football season for me. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and it's coming from all angles. It's coming from legendary coaches who moved to the broadcasting booth. Nick Saban talked about Ole Miss going to the Big 12 and having no problem, and yet they seem to forget that Texas was in the Big 12, a team that tonight could stamp their ticket to the SEC title game. Texas was in the Big 12 for a long time. They didn't dominate the Big 12, Mitch.
No.
And in the last 15 years, they went to the Big 12 championship game one time. Like, what does that say? No, when Texas and Oklahoma were here, no one took a dump, for lack of a better term, on the Big 12. And yet now that those teams are gone, they just seem to forget that the Kansas States of the world and the Oklahoma States of the world and the Baylors, that they're good football teams. Are they Alabama? Are they Georgia? Of course not.
They might be this year. Alabama's not great.
Fair.
They're 8-3.
Fair. Good point. But historically speaking, no one is arguing that these teams are to the level of an Ohio State or a Georgia. But that's not to say they don't play great Power 5 football. And you look at the rankings, to have an Ole Miss team in front of Arizona State, 14-16, that is blatant disrespect. Ole Miss is out of the conversation, in my opinion.
Sure.
You can't go to a Florida team and lose in the manner they did.
And Ole Miss yesterday on Black Friday struggled against this Mississippi State team that Arizona State just beat to a pulp in the first half. They were up, I think, 28-0 in that game in Tempe against Mississippi State. And, the final score was a little bit closer as Arizona State took their foot off the gas earlier this year. But it's just crazy to me. I've always been of the belief that the SEC is the best football league for about the past, 15 years. I think it has been. But I think a lot of that bears itself out with the NFL draft picks and things like that. And I think those are the pieces that I feel like become like the trump card in these rankings. Well, this team's got a lot more 5 stars than Arizona State and BYU, so they passed the eye test, and that's the narrative they're pushing. It's very frustrating because, yes, the Big 12 teams, they don't necessarily pass the surface level eye test of, oh my gosh, they get off the bus and they just have all these 5 stars. Yes, they don't pass that. But the thing is that there's really good football in this league, and you've got in the top 25 this week 5 teams. You want to knock this league, yet at the same time you put 5 teams in from this conference. It doesn't make sense to me. And just the SEC, what, are you giving them the benefit of the doubt because they have 90,000 seat stadiums? Is that what the Big 12 needs to do? Just build these massive Taj Mahal stadiums? And that's going to be like, oh, how do you go into that environment and win there? It's just so strange to me how the College Football Playoff Committee has given no respect to the Big 12. If you win this league, you should absolutely get a first-round bye.
Yep.
And you should be viewed as just a absolute lock. It was disrespectful this week when Tulane, 9-2 going into the week, was ranked ahead of BYU and Iowa State and, Kansas State. Then Tulane loses this week. Tulane lost to K-State. I hate to dismiss the group of 5 teams because BYU lived in that space for a long time.
Yep.
And they were always fighting for respect. But why is it now suddenly BYU's in the Power League and these group of 5 leagues are the ones getting the respect? Am I just in a bizarro world where these teams are getting more respect now than Big 12 teams? Big 12 has really good football, really good coaches, really good coaching staffs, a lot of resources. And for some reason, doesn't matter. You're not as good as this league.
I think this sport really struggles with erasing the preseason narratives. Those get set in the summer, and you cling to those for dear life rather than watching the football unfold in front of you. And that's what's frustrating is there's not enough premium put on the games and the results on the field. Too much is put on, Ole Miss was considered a dark horse national champion. We can't write them off because they're not a dark horse anymore. They played, they failed. Let's elevate the teams that have won football games and deserve to be there. It's just BYU, Arizona State, I'm sorry, and it pains me to compliment them after what we witnessed last week in Tempe. They're a top 12 team. They deserve to be in the top 12. They deserve to be in front of Ole Miss and South Carolina and Clemson. They should be in front of Indiana, for heaven's sakes. Indiana has done nothing, and they're going to find their way into the 12-team playoff, Mitch, solely because they are a Big Ten team. If
they dominated their opponents, though. Indiana's been really good. I think they deserve it.
Maybe, depending on how things shake out.
I think they deserve it.
They got pummeled by the only team that's worth anything.
But they destroyed all the teams that were bad on their schedule and made them look bad. They've been really good.
It's hard. That's the one. This is a good point to bring up because conference expansion has made it hard to evaluate these teams.
Sure.
Because you cannot play bounce schedules. But I personally want to believe in a sport that puts a premium on quality of schedule because when you're playing good football teams week in and week out, that's better for us, for the people attending the games and watching the games. If there's meaningful football being played, that is better for us. And then I also want to put a premium on, are you beating good teams? That matters to me. BYU's got to win against a top 10 team in the rankings. SMU is ranked 9. That doesn't matter. They've got a home win against number 24, Kansas State. Doesn't give a rip. And if they somehow get to the Big 12 championship game, they're going to play another ranked team because Arizona State or Iowa State is going to stay in the top 25. Is that not going to matter? It's just, I cannot believe this sport, Mitch. It's so freaking frustrating that we're not rewarding teams for winning meaningful football games.
It's the best sport in the world, but it's also the dumbest sport in the world. College football, it's really when you take a step back, you go, this is so dumb, this sport, how we got a talking head now in Nick Saban, who's the greatest coach ever, in my opinion.
And I like him on game day.
Absolutely, he's awesome. But he's going out on shows and saying, well, if Ole Miss was in the Big 12, what would their record be? Well, if Ole Miss was in the Big 12, they probably have less the media resources. And because they had that Roman numeral logo instead of the SEC logo, you would instantly brand them as a mediocre team. That's how this works. Yep. It's just insane to me. It doesn't. If you had Ole Miss's logos removed and put BYU logo on Ole Miss's helmet, they wouldn't even be in the top 25 if they were 8-3, in my opinion. It's just because I feel like the playoff committee, the way they rank these teams, and then if you're a BYU or you're a Big 12 team and you lose, man, you plummet. But if you have a close win or a hard-fought, close loss in the SEC or the Big 10, you're fine. It's okay. You're still in the top 12. I just don't get it. It's why can you not? Why does this sport not appreciate a Cinderella or someone that's just maybe outside of what you perceive as the best brands? I don't get it. It's just the one sport that does not embrace something different, something new. The 12-team playoffs is going to be great because the thing is, whoever gets in from the Big 12, you better deliver. And it's going to be a tough spot. You're going to probably play the 5 seed, probably. You got to win, or you got to play. You got to go down to the wire and give some respect to the Big 12 because that's what they've got to do. They got to earn it on the field and go show up in these playoff games.
All right, let's take a break. We got a long show ahead, plenty of breakdown for BYU and Houston, and maybe we'll sprinkle in a little hoops from what we learned over the weekend down in San Diego. Back with more after this.